Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I am very grateful and humbled to have Dr. Deborah Rozman with us today. Deborah is the CEO and president of HeartMath. She is a behavioral psychologist with 30 years of experience in wellness, performance, and behavioral change. For over 2 decades, she has helped to oversee HeartMath and co-create their many training programs, some of which I've participated in and very highly recommend. These programs are designed to facilitate individuals in creating a deeper heart connection in ways that can empower them to reduce stress, build their resilience, and create a more heart-connected world at home, work, of course, with clients, with patients, and so on. Deborah is the co-author, along with HeartMath founder Doc Childre, of a series of books on transforming stress, including transforming anger, transforming stress, transforming anxiety, and transforming depression. She is passionate about exploring the heart's intelligence and is absolutely committed to helping educate more people about the role that the heart plays in wellness, performance, and our personal fulfillment, which is why she's here with us today, I imagine. Thank you so much, Deborah, for taking the time to be here with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
As I mentioned, and as you know, I am a trainer with the Institute of HeartMath. And one of the things that I do is I go in and I train leaders and teams on how to build the resilience capacity. So I would love to jump right in and ask for your input as to why should a CEO or business owner, senior leader even explore this type of work?
Sure. Well, let me first clarify. I'm the president and CEO of HeartMath Incorporated, the for-profit company. And the Institute of HeartMath is a 501c3 nonprofit, which I helped start. And there are 2 HeartMath companies, and they serve different markets, so to speak. But that's part of the mission of how do we establish the intelligence of the heart as a key input to the brain and to the body. And most people think of the heart as just a blood pump. It's so way more than that. It actually is a whole system. And science only since the 1990s has rediscovered it, not just at HeartMath Institute, but a whole new field of neurocardiology was unfolded when they realized that the heart has within itself its own intrinsic nervous system that is independent of the brain. It's a little brain in the heart that operates independently, but can sense, feel, learn, and remember. And this is really profound because it's actually sensory neurons that have a different function than the brain neurons. And it's involved in what we talk about in terms of those intuitive feelings, in terms of the quality values, core values that we all really cherish: love, care, compassion, kindness, and even from the military point of view, who we work a lot with, courage. The root word of courage, cor, is the heart in Latin. Passion. More of the male heart qualities, respect, pride in what you do. These are all evoked from deep feelings and connections in the heart, not mental logic. So what we want to do is be able to harness those heart attributes to activate qualities and physiology of the heart that can improve heart-brain communication. And any wise leader knows they are listening to their heart in some way, or following their heart in their hunches, their intuition, and often call it gut feeling. But the science is showing that it doesn't originate in the gut. Intuition really is connected from the heart. The heart signals the brain then signals the body, and the body responds, and we feel it in the gut, or some of us feel it directly in the heart. So it's really important to understand the role of the heart as an intelligence system and learn how to tap into that intelligence.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you also for clarifying your role. My apologies. So, a lot of people believe that, it's the head, it's the logic, that's kind of what's gotten them to where they are. And they tend to trust that. And when I do some of these trainings, and I always start with, how are you feeling right now? What's that internal experience, to have them label that before, of course, doing a quick coherence together. And a lot of people struggle to even name the emotion,
Yeah.
or they may say, I'm tired, or, share some kind of a physical state.
Right.
What would you suggest for individuals who, have not really been trained in how to do this? They might feel very uncomfortable to go
Right.
inward.
Absolutely. Well, I always suggest start with a little bit of the science so people know that why they should even shift focus to this area around the heart or the chest area, or even practice heart focused breathing through that area. What's it doing? It's balancing the autonomic nervous system, the interaction of the parasympathetic, which relaxes and slows you down, and the sympathetic, which activates. And if we are too dominant on the sympathetic, as most of leaders are, and most people in our society are, it really shuts down our intuitive capacities, and it also creates a tremendous amount of stress, which we know is an epidemic. And stress leads to anxiety, leads to depression, leads to behavioral issues. My background is as a behavioral psychologist. So just being able to do some heart-focused breathing that can balance the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for 90% of the body's involuntary functions, from immune system to hormonal system to digestion to sleep, right there, we're beginning to start to self-regulate. So I always start with a little science of why focus on the heart. Then go from there to, okay, what are the core values of the heart that you may appreciate, including appreciation. Appreciation and gratitude have been known in business to be as important to employees as pay increases. People want to feel valued. And it's really important for us to understand that as leaders. And if we have any effectiveness as a leader at all, it's not just logic. We appreciate people. We care for them. And those are qualities of the heart. So we can connect with that appreciation, that care. It doesn't have to be mysterious. And very often in our society, emotions get confused with the heart. When we feel angry, frustrated, impatient, usually it's our mind driving those reactions, how we perceive a situation. And those emotions and the neurochemicals they produce, we do feel it in the chest or heart area, constriction. Our heart rate goes up, our heart rate variability gets real incoherent, and that sends a signal to the brain that says, go into survival mode, fight, flight, fright. But that has nothing to do with the deeper core values of the heart, that with appreciating someone or having compassion for their challenges, or just being acts of kindness that bring out the best in people. So these attributes of the heart are what send the heart rate variability, the beat to beat changes in our heart rate, in the pattern of them, into what's called a coherent waveform, a sine wave. And that's where we have HeartMath technology that lets people see this in real time. So I always demonstrate that to people. And when you're frustrated, you see yourself immediately go into more of a chaotic heart rhythm pattern. And when you're feeling appreciative, it goes into this sine wave, harmonious, coherent, ordered pattern. And right there is a wow for people. Oh, I didn't know that. So just showing how the heart is involved in our emotional and perceptual experience is really an important first step. Now, what the research is showing is that sine wave-like coherent waveform, when you're feeling appreciative, or even when you're just calm and balanced in the autonomic nervous system, is sending a different signal to the brain that is actually going to the emotional processing center of the brain. It's going to the thalamus that synchronizes cortical function, all the way to the frontal lobes, which is where our higher performing capacities are. So that coherence in the heart, that appreciation, and positive psychologists have also shown this, is actually activating the higher potentials of the brain. We see a bigger picture, our lens expands, and we can make better decisions, better choices when we involve the heart coherence in it.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. And I imagine this is especially important in times when there's a lot of uncertainty, as many of us are experiencing, when we just don't have the data to be able to make those choices that feel comfortable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right now, nobody knows what the future is going to bring. They can say they do, but nobody knows. Look, who predicted the pandemic? And who predicted the economic fallout, or that it lasts this long, or that we'd all be living on Zoom, working on, from home for nearly a year? And what is the new normal? Is this going backwards? For many, it's not. Their businesses are closed. And for many, it's a new business model. Or there's a lot of people, having been sequestered at home for a long time, don't want to give up as much time that they've now learned to spend with their spouse or their children or their garden. Or they don't want to live in an office 60 hours a week. They don't mind if they have to go back some, but they want to be able to continue the best of what they've experienced. And I think that we're going to see a whole lot of change as we open up our economies. And we don't want to just go back to the old unfulfilling aspects of what we had. We want to really use our intuition, our heart's intuitive guidance, and how we're going to step back into the world, or how we are going to create a new normal. In fact, I'm developing a program right now, which will come out in May, an hour program on how to use HeartMath tools to help create your new normal. And what that means is the tools are connecting with your deeper values and intuitive direction of what would be best for you.
Yeah, and I imagine that's going to be very empowering for people, because a lot of people go out, of themselves to look for those solutions of what the new normal might be. And they need to be trained on how to do that by going inward and, connecting with their own truth, their own intuitive guidance.
That's right. And it's always a combination of what your own guidance is and what the available opportunities are externally.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, we've talked a lot so far about kind of the benefits for ourselves in terms of our ability to tune into that guidance, to perceive things in a higher way, a more open way, more objective way. I'm curious, especially for leaders, whether it's leaders of a family or whether leaders of an organization. How does our own coherence impact other people, if at all? What are you seeing in the research on that?
Yeah. The research is actually very clear on that. We pick up easily each other's stress waves. We can go into a room and two people have just been arguing, and you feel like you can cut the energy with a knife, even though there's no obvious body language. And we can go into a inspirational, like some of these ancient cathedrals in Europe. You walk in and you immediately feel, inspired. Why? Because there's an energy there of people who've been loving and devoted, and it's in the energetic field. So we are always sort of feeding the field, as the HeartMath expression, with what we're feeling. And what the research shows is that whatever your heart rhythm pattern is doing, if you're stressed or frustrated, it's like a radio wave going out that affects the electromagnetic field that your heartbeat's creating. And the heart rhythm pattern, the beat to beat, changes in your heart rate. If that's that frustrated, incoherent rhythm, it actually shows up in people's brain waves. That's what the studies have shown. So yeah, we're affecting each other. And when we are loving or caring or appreciative or even calm in those genuine heart attributes, and we're in that coherent waveform, that is also can be picked up by other people's brainwaves. That's why we like to be around certain people and not around other people. So now science is beginning to explain how it works. So as we get more heart coherent, it helps us, our performance, our heart-brain alignment, but it also helps us hear others better, listen better, communicate more authentically. And that is energetically translated between our hearts and brains. That heart-to-heart communication isn't something just sweet or you save for somebody who you're intimate with. It's that genuineness that really co-creates potential, authenticity, real communication, and real listening. So if you want to be a good listener, shift to the heart and listen from the heart without thinking, and you'll have more intuitive clarity in what the person's really trying to tell you.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. And I imagine, I mean, I know even as a parent, I of course, use these tools myself. And sometimes one of my children will be in some state of distress, and then when I myself get coherent, of course, not only, as you said, am I able to tune into their internal experience, their energy a little bit more, but it seems to soften the energy, and they shift without me having to say anything. They shift their state, which is absolutely fascinating. And we see this also in teams, when there's conflict in teams. So what might you suggest to a leader that may have some disharmony in their team and they deeply want people to get along? Maybe there's some change that the company's working towards. What might help in a situation like that?
I think the best thing that helps is the relationship between the leader and the team members. If you actually talk to them and listen to them with that heart alignment, you'll understand more deeply what's going on and be able to use your own intelligence and common sense and facilitation to help. So it's one-on-one in that level. It's to really understand. And then in team dynamics, with a team together, HeartMath has a whole set of tools we call social coherence tools. And we have a program called Activating the Heart of Teams that leaders can take, or people who work with teams can take, to really learn a whole skill set of how to build team coherence, team resonance for more conflict resolution. But also, once you get some of that conflict and the biases out of the way, the separations, people get along a little better, boy, then the creativity and the co-creativity becomes very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it shifts cultures really. And like you said, helps to innovate and break through limitations. And what's really exciting is that we have assessments, right, through HeartMath, both individual and also organizational, so we can measure. And I'm absolutely fascinated by the research that I've read around, higher productivity, higher, teamwork, less stress, less tension, less sleeplessness, right, higher engagement, and so on and so forth. What can you share a little bit about some of that work? I think a lot of us, would be really curious to see, how has this actually helped in organizations where maybe there was some tension, maybe there wasn't a whole lot of coherence to begin with. What are you noticing?
Oh, well, over the years, now you can remember, we've been working with organizations, either directly training ourselves in our Resilience Advantage program, or it's had different names over the last 30 years, or through our certified trainers, such as yourself. And what we're noticing, and because we've been very assessment driven, pre and post, with our personal and organizational quality assessment, we see that in usually 6 weeks' time, a baseline shift, improvements in health, reductions in anxiety, 30% reduction in depression. People learn these self-regulation tools to come back to center and get rebooted, realigned. They use them throughout the day. And they can use that inner balance or M-Wave technology to refine that, to see what's really happening in their heart rhythms, which reflects the heart-brain communication. And when we've gone into companies, Fortune 10 companies to small companies, the results are always the same. Improvement in emotional and mental health, like anxiety, depression, reduction in stress symptoms like rapid heartbeats, high blood pressure reductions, reduction in fatigue, improved sleep. It's a cascading causal effect. And so once you begin regulating the autonomic nervous system, the emotional system responds, mental clarity increases, getting along with others improve, we're less reactive, and the health improves. And then we see performance, productivity, engagement, all those things that you mentioned improve. And HeartMath has a skill set, a set of tools that applies to each of these areas that we've refined over the last 30 years. So we pretty much can guarantee these results if people use them. So in 6 weeks, if we do a pre and post, after 6 weeks, we'll see tremendous improvement in all these personal and organizational metrics. And it tends to be sustained. If people start to have a shift and start to know their locus of control isn't always up here, but it can shift to here, and they'll start to have a wider lens of perception, it's also fulfilling because the hormones released when you're feeling appreciative or kind feel a whole lot better than the hormones released when you're constantly impatient or frustrated or stressed. So it becomes self-rewarding in a lot of ways, as well as with creativity, improved relationships. And yes, it needs to be nurtured, and in order to have a real neural program, a neural habit change. But again, that's what the HeartMath tools and the HeartMath training is all about. We see the results sustain after 6 months. When we go back in after a year, in companies we've worked in, people can actually see that data if they go to heartmath.com. Some of it's on our homepage, and then click on a tab in terms of organizations, and you'll see more data. And there's case studies, white papers, all of that. But it's exciting. People kind of think, oh, this is too good to be true because they hadn't heard of it or the research behind it. And that's really our commitment now. We have to get this research out. We have to make it more well known. For a lot of people, it's common sense, but you got to do it. It's not enough to just know it in order to have the results. And that's why we started this year Activating the Heart of Teams program, so that we could really focus on team building, on social coherence, as well as personal coherence.
Yeah. And I mean, my personal commitment is to get this out to as many companies, individuals as possible, because this stuff really does work. And and we see that in research, and I see that in my own life and in my clients' lives. I'm curious, if we were to kind of ask you, if you don't mind personally, how has this work helped in your life, maybe your family's life? What have you noticed?
Well, it's a way of life. It's for me. And of course, it didn't start that way. You had to practice until it became a way of life. But it's helped tremendously. I mean, if I start to feel triggered by something, because life is still life, I know exactly what to do to not let it drain my energy, to bring it back to center, and to use the HeartMath tools, which we all use at HeartMath. I use throughout the day in creating flow. There's nothing better in a work day than feeling like you're in flow. And it doesn't have to be like one of those days, everything flowed. You can create that each day. Yeah, it doesn't mean there won't be days that are more challenging, and you have to dig a little deeper in using the techniques or tools, but they work, and they work quickly. And then you come back to recenter, and you learn techniques that we have, like prep and reset. So it's a heart-based technique to get a prep before a meeting that potentially could go wonky, or before you need to respond to that vexing email. And reset is when you already blew it. You press send before you should have, and you regret what you wrote. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had that. Or you say something you later regret. How do you reset after that so you're not mentally brooding over it all day and draining your energy? Well, there's ways to reboot, because it's your operating system in depersonalizing a lot of that stuff, so that you really can, reset how the heart, brain, emotions are working. It's very, very empowering. So I use them all the time, and life is wonderful. And it doesn't mean I don't have challenges, because it's always about growth and new learnings. But, kind of take it on a certain way of a game. Life becomes more of I don't mean that in a superficial way. It's more like these game challenges, like you would in having more objectivity, I guess is what that means to me. But your heart's in the game. Playing with your heart.
I love that. And actually, as you know, the name of this podcast is the mindset game, in the sense that, it really is a game. When we're able to tune in to how we're feeling, to label that anytime we're feeling what might be labeled as kind of cold, in the sense of getting colder, moving away from what we want or how we want to feel, we can tune in and do a technique like quick coherence or one of the other tools to be able to kind of shift and reset and choose more deliberately, more objectively.
Yeah, a lot of people are scared of their feelings. Feeling can be one of those touchy-feely words, especially for a lot of guys, but leaders, because we've been taught to be strong, to push them away. Whereas feeling is a source of incredible information that we want to have, but we don't want it to run our lives in an emotionalism. So being able to do what we call spot check, occasionally just check in. Where are you? What's going on? Is there tension? Like you're saying, is there underlying anxiety, which a lot of people experience these days and tend to shove it down because they don't know what to do with it? If it is, you're losing power, you're losing energy. And so being able to identify and then use a tool, because no point in identifying if you don't know what to do with it. And that anxiety, and how to lift your vibration to be able to release it in the moment or soon, and then move on back to the flow. Yeah. You need that for resilience and for creating.
So I actually had one of the CEOs in one of the sessions I did this week, training them on resilience and so on. And he said, I'm feeling this apprehension, is doing for some changes in the company, some anxiety, apprehension. And I taught them quick coherence and so on. And then he said, but I think that the apprehension is really good for me. I think that stress is what's driving me to keep going. And, so there was resistance to letting that go, to being able to shift. And so really had to kind of train him on, yes, it's important to feel an emotion, get the information that you need, and then to be able to let that go, not kind of hold it in the body. So what would you say to somebody who says, I need stress, I don't want to let it go. I know those emotions help me to be successful.
Oh, that has been the paradigm for business and for sports, for a lot of things. The military did a chart years ago, which we use in our training programs, where it shows that challenge energy, like a little bit of challenge or stress or motivation or apprehension. It's not bad at all. It's what we do with that signal. They're all signals. Mm-hmm. And if you use it to recenter and get clarity on what to do, the apprehension goes away. It turns into resilience capacity. It turns into productive performance. And there's fulfillment or reward that comes from that. If you go past a certain curve, though, with the apprehension, using that or the challenge, and it starts to drain you, that incoherence between the heart and brain actually limits your ability to see solutions. So we like to define challenge energy rather than stress, because stress and distress, unless they motivate you to get back in sync with yourself and do something, they're really debilitating. They are what's causing these anxiety disorders, depression, alcohol, substance abuse, all of that. People fool themselves saying, I need stress. What we need is motivation. And we don't always have to have that motivation through stressful feelings like apprehension, anxiety. Those are signals telling us something's out of whack, do something about it. And we either step into what our clarity is telling us to do, or our intuition is, or we're blocked and don't know what to do and live with it. And that isn't motivating, that's debilitating. So learning how all this works is really important, especially these days, especially now with the pandemic, especially with the uncertainty, as you said. Nobody knows what's going to happen politically, economically, and we think everything's going to go well, but then you see global situations, climate change, all sorts of uncertainties. They're not going to go away. So how do we manage uncertainty? How do we navigate uncertainty in times of change and stay coherent? Or come back to coherence. That's what the quick coherence technique you keep mentioning, it's the core HeartMath technique, is all about, because it's all about how to shift to the heart and then synchronize your breathing, your heart rhythm, and your brain waves so you have access to more of your creative potential.
Yes, thank you. And, you mentioned earlier, the field.
Right.
And some people, when I share this at the beginning of a workshop, they might say, what does that mean, right? They might disbelieve that there is something perhaps greater than themselves, something in the invisible, if you will. And what might you say, in terms of the research that you're seeing that validates there is in fact a very real field, and we actually can access that in order to get that guidance, those heart solutions?
Sure. Well, first of all, with every heartbeat, the heart is putting out 2.5 watts of power. And every time you have a generator like that, it's creating an electromagnetic field. That's just physics. So the field isn't something woo-woo or mysterious. It can be actually measured, the heart's field, up to 3 feet away from the body with a magnetometer, and likely goes farther, but the magnetometers can't pick it up yet. And so that's, again, how we feel each other's energy. It's coming through an electromagnetic field. The brain has one too, but it's only a few inches outside of the head that it extends. So this energetic body, so to speak, is very measurable. It's not an aura, it's our field and our feelings that are broadcast by our thoughts and emotions and by the heart rhythm pattern, which the EKG beats. It's putting out that rhythm, that like a radio wave. Think of your heart and its electrical potential as like a radio transmitter, transmitting patterns according to what you're feeling, stress or say love or care. And we all pick up on it. And so think of the planet and all the stress waves being broadcast through all the radio stations and internet stations on the planet. And think of the wonderful waves being transmitted through the wonderful music that's uplifting or the positive news. When we see that, we feel uplifted. So it's all going on at the same time. And I think it's just common sense when you walk in a room and you feel the vibes, the kids talk about vibes, that's happening in a field of energy. Yes. And so where's the intuition come from? How, when a mom knows her kid's in trouble and they live across the country, but there's some intuitive feeling, we call that non-local intuition. There's obviously something outside of time and space that's a field as well. And quantum fields, and science is just beginning to measure that. So there's a lot we're learning, but a lot that just we know through common sense.
Yeah, and thank you. And it's so fascinating. And I think, what we know from change management research is that, the leader's perception of the change, their engagement in the change process, continuously, not just at the very beginning, is one of the biggest determinants as to whether, the rest of the organization will lessen some of the resistance that they may be feeling. And that makes sense also in terms of what are they radiating, so to speak, or broadcasting, as you said, out into the field. How are they feeling about the change? What are they thinking about that? And are they doing that, their own energy management in order to, express more compassion, more, kindness, more appreciation, as you said, those heart values?
That's right. And, people have a good nose for what's authentic or not, because there's so many leaders who will mouth those values, but don't have the maturity or skills to live them. It's one thing to say, have compassion. It's another thing to blow up it and have a quick trigger. And the employees or the staff people know that. So, and again, all this stuff is new. No one's expected to be perfect. There's just every endeavor has a set of skills that we learn. If you're playing a sport, you have to learn how to play it. There's a set of rules or set of functions that make you a good golfer or not. The same thing with performance. There's a set of functions that involve the heart that enable you to self-regulate, manage your emotions. And that's what HeartMath is here for.
And it's so exciting, Deborah, because I think a lot of leaders might think, I'm either an inspiring leader or I'm not. I'm either, charismatic or I'm not. And what you're sharing and what we know from research is that it's a skill like anything else. And when you develop your heart resilience, you will be more charismatic. You will lead more from the heart.
That's right.
And that I imagine is very exciting for a lot of leaders that don't see themselves that way. And I imagine it inspires them to do this work and actually experience it and see the results, which is really
absolutely. And they don't have to be scared. A lot of people go, oh my God, I'll never get there. start one step at a time. HeartMath is giving away the HeartMath Experience, which is a video-based online learning course. And it'll give you some of the research, some of the techniques, some of the understanding of a heart momentum that is occurring in business and society that you can utilize. And it's free. We decided at the start of the pandemic last year, we're just going to give it away. It was the best business decision we've made, even though that wasn't our motivation. We wanted people to have help, but it's totally widened our funnel, and people buy our technology now, and they a lot more want to get certified to be coaches or mentors or workshop trainers or health professionals. Many of them, thousands, are getting certified in our HeartMath Health Professional Clinical Certification to really understand the science as well as the tools. So go to heartmath.com/experience and you can download it for free.
Thank you, Deborah, and I'm grateful for your time today. I'm grateful for your input today. Thank you for directing our listeners to this website because I believe that this is a really good introduction for them of this work to get to practice and see the results for themselves. And of course, then to reach out and learn about your training coaching programs, because I know certainly it was transformational for me, for the people that I've introduced this to, and I know to many others. So Deborah, thank you for sharing this time with us, thank you for sharing this work with the world, especially now we deeply need that love and those tools.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it, and I hope that it helps and inspires the people who are watching this.
Without a doubt. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.